Welcome to the It's All About Missions podcast with Brady Van Winkle, as we endeavor to talk about missions and the need for the gospel all around the world. We hope we can help you find your place in world evangelism. And for questions or for more information, please check out it'sallaboutmissions.com. And now we hope you enjoy the show. Hello, and thank you for joining us on this week's episode of It's All About Missions Country of the Week Country Spotlight, as we're going back to the islands of sea, and we're going to different islands. We're going to be looking at Papua New Guinea, and it's a very interesting island, and I know some of the things about it. It's interesting to learn from different people and things like that. Give you some basic things about it. But basically, it has a population of around 8 million people. The capital is Port Moresby, and the largest city is Auckland with about 1 million people. In it, again, if you look at the statistics, it says it's basically predominantly Christian, and those that would be Christian, but that's such a wide variety from Catholicism to Protestantism to all kinds of things fall underneath that. So yes, some are true believers, some are not true believers. There's just a great need for the gospel there, though. I find it very interesting. There is religious freedom there. There's the opportunity to start churches and see things done there. But there is a great need for the gospel. And one thing, as I was researching and looking about it, I love what was said about it, is that it's one of the most culturally diverse areas. I'm looking for you. Papua New Guinea is one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world. And it says that as of 2019, only about 13% of its population actually lived in urban areas or lived in cities. Most of the rest of the population would be living out in the jungles and in their own little communities and villages and things like that. English is known as the main language there. There are a couple other known languages that would be spoken, but really, English is the predominant language they say that would be done for business and stuff there, but there's over 850 tribal languages that are spoken throughout. So everywhere you go, different tribes have different languages. Yes, some of them communicate with and know each other's tribal language things, but there's over 800 languages in this country, and there's just a great need for people to go and to learn those languages to reach these people out in here. And what also is interesting is it's one of the least explored and least explored countries in the world. They believe there's possibly people that have never been contacted that live in this country because there's jungles and all kinds of places to get to, and areas and mountains and things like that where people are and people exist. And I've heard some different stories from the past, some missionaries that have worked there in the past. I know some people that are working there now, and there's just a great need for the gospel here. People that are willing to go, and it's not just going to be easy. It's not one of those things you just go in, you live in the city, and you go out. I've heard the stories of people taking hours and taking time to get from one place, from a major city like Port Moresby, or you go to one of the other larger cities, and then you try to get into these villages and stuff. It's just not as easy. It's a lot harder work, but there's a need for the gospel because these people here are dying, going to hell. Many of them have their own tribal religions and things like that, and someone needs to go and take the gospel to the people of Papua New Guinea before it's eternally too late, and be willing to risk. Yes, it's a lot of work. Yes, it's hard, but God didn't say, just go to a country if it's easy. Just go there just go to large cities. Yes, going to large cities is great. I think go to large cities, reach those people, and then send people out to these villages. But there's people that are willing to say, I'll go reach these people in the tribes. I'll go learn their languages. I'll go take the time. I'll go take the risk. It's not an easy life, and the stories I've heard of people that have done it, it's amazing to see how God has worked, and there is a work going on there. We need to pray for those that are laboring, pray for those that are starting churches, pray for those that are ministering and reaching those, that God will not only see people saved, but also that God will provide pastors, that those pastors can then train more men and send those men to plant churches all over Papua New Guinea and the surrounding areas, because Papua New Guinea is in great need of the gospel. Let's just pray this week for the country Papua New Guinea. Let's pray for those that are laboring there. Let's pray for the Papua New Guinean, I'm assuming I'm saying that right, I'm not exactly sure, Papua New Guinean pastors, those that are pastoring churches, that God will give them boldness, that God will give them men that they can train. But also let's pray for the Papua New Guinean Christians, that they'll be bold to share the gospel with their friends. They'll be willing to give their lives to step out and share the gospel with people. But also let's pray for the lost of Papua New Guinea who are on their way to hell and need the gospel. Let's pray that God will open their eyes, that God will send people there. Let's pray for God to raise up an army of missionaries that will give their lives to go and take the gospel to Papua New Guinea. And as I always say, as we're praying this week for Papua New Guinea to reach the gospel in this generation, let's be doing, and you should be doing all that you can where you're at to help see the word reach the gospel in your generation, from sharing the gospel with people you come in contact with, to discipling, to giving towards missions, to praying about going on a mission trip, to really going on a mission trip, to being at every service your church has, doing all that you can, because time is short. Christ is coming back. People are dying, going to hell. We need to be praying and doing all that we can so we can see the world reach with the gospel in this generation. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of It's All About Missions.
And we'd like to ask you to do a couple things for us. The first thing I ask you to do, so if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date when all of our new episodes drop. And that way, as a new episode comes, you'll get a notification that lets you know, hey, we've got a new episode if it's all about missions. Second thing we ask you to do, if you haven't yet, please make sure to leave us a review. These reviews are very vital and they help us out and they help other people to see us in the podcast player of choice. They'll see us and see those reviews and say, hey, I want to check out this podcast. And lastly, one other thing I'd like you to do, why don't you share us with a friend, a family member, somebody you know, and say, hey, why don't you go over and check out It's All About Missions. That'll help us grow our audience, help people to know more about It's All About Missions, and guess what? It'll help more people get involved in reaching the world with the gospel. I want to challenge you to know that the Bible, it's all about missions. And as a Christian, your life should be all about missions. And what are you going to do to impact the world with the gospel in this generation?